Welcome back to Decision 2018. I'm Andy Hoosier as we cover midterm elections, both at the statewide level, the federal level, and even here at the local level. And in studio with me now, I'm really excited to chat with from Sedgwick County Commission, District number 5, Mr. Jim Howell. Jim, how are you, my friend?
Great, Andy. How are you doing?
Hey, appreciate you coming in here very much. Running for, how many terms you been in?
This is my end of my first county commission term.
Very good, very good. How's it going so far with the campaign?
You know, it's great. I really enjoy getting out to talk to people at the doors. It's always educational and informative. Actually, I walk away with action items many times. Last night I got an action item from someone.
There you go.
You know, it's just great to connect with people wherever they happen to be, and you get to hear all kinds of good things and great questions. And so it's just it's a great experience, really.
Sure. I talked to you on the radio quite a bit, talking about just the weekly county commission meetings, what's going on. And I got to say, this is, I think, the only government body that I know that's actually cut their debt.
Actually, that's one of my talking points. Actually, we talk about we've cut about 20% of our debt, and people say, "Well, how do you do that?" The first thing you have to do is stop digging the hole. And so, if something's truly critically important, we're going to use debt if we need to. But if we have the cash in the account to cover emergency, critical issues, or very expensive, unusual purchases like the administration building that we're talking about right now in this community, that's a very appropriate use of debt, no problem. But many of the things we do with debt are really small in nature and maybe not that critical. And so if we would just simply plan ahead a little bit further, we would do a much better job not wasting tax dollars on interest. And so I've tried to push the county commission towards using more cash and less debt, and especially on what I consider to be routine maintenance decisions. The county for many, many years has routinely borrowed $4 million, and of course, each time you borrow $4 million, it turns out to be $5.6 million to pay back. And so I consider that to be like a pipeline with 20-year bonds. Each one of those $4 million, it's $80 million in the pipeline. But that's the one end of the value. But the other end, you add 1.6 million times 20, and that's the true cost to the taxpayer. But we're paying off one bond this year and putting another one in the end of the pipeline this year. So that's just insanity. It doesn't make sense, and it's for things that really aren't critically, absolutely important this year. It's just a bad habit. And many governing bodies don't do this type of bad behavior, but they would focus their debt on things that are truly extraordinary and unusual or critical in nature, especially when you don't have cash.
Sure.
And so that is a major change for the county. Unfortunately, it is a bit political, and there's obviously disagreement on this.
Sure.
We have also moved to cut our debt capacity in half. When I got there 3.5 years ago, we allowed ourselves 20% debt service of our budget. 20% could go to debt, and we cut that down to 10. In fact, we actually had it down to 9, but the new commission came in 2016 and raised it back up from 9 to 10. And anyway, I just think that we have overdependence on debt, and really it's just bad for governments to do that, especially when it's not absolutely critically important.
You mentioned those bonds. The school boards and the school districts like to do that as well, is that when a bond expires, it's 15, 20, 30 years out. When it expires, they just renew it and it continues on. Have we seen in the county bonds to where they've expired, we don't have to pay on them anymore, and we don't renew them, so that way that kind of loosens up the belt a little bit?
That actually is happening, and in fact it's happening so much that we actually passed a resolution. That's what we call a county law, or something that constrains us in the future. We passed a resolution that says we're going to lower the mill levy by 0.601 mils in 2022 because we're paying off debt. We don't need that much money. And
wait a second, the government says we don't need that much
money
now?
We're going to live without it. And I'll tell you, when I talk to people at the doors, they're tired of the ever-increasing size and scope of government. And it's refreshing to see a government that says we're not going to just grow without restraint, which is what we see everywhere else. And so I'm proud of the county for basically saying, we're not going to do that bad habit. We're simply going to draw a line in the sand. If something's critically important, we'll know about it. But generally speaking, if we can live without something, the community is working very well without, expanding the size and scope of government. People generally support that idea.
Sure.
And so there actually really is an endless supply of things the government, or I should say endless number of things the government can spend money on. You give them more money, they'll always find a way to spend it.
Sure.
And so we've got to restrain ourselves and keep ourselves in our own, within our own umbrella, and focus on the things that really are our responsibility and do those extremely well. And people do support, I call this, again, I know this sounds like a term you may not like, but I like the word good government.
Sure.
Good government, in my opinion, if it's done properly, it does lead to a freer and more safer and freer community. In other words, I can leave my house knowing that I've got police that are there to make sure that the thugs are under control. And that type of taxation and that type of community service called public safety, we support that. I think that there's very few people would say it's not a good thing. But that requires good government. You need to have transparency and accountability. You need to have efficiency and effectiveness. There's got to be a desire for that type of spending and a willingness to pay those taxes to provide those levels of government. And people need to understand that it's things that they desire and things that they want. But the problem is, we in government, the politicians, think too much of ourselves. We like to tax more and get more and spend more because that's what politicians do.
Sure.
And so I'm proud of the county simply for picking a different path.
Sure. Talk about your district, District number 5. Where is that located?
So generally speaking, everything that's to the east of the Arkansas River and everything to the south of Kellogg Avenue, now the interior part of that, as you get close to the city center, it kind of cuts the corner. So if you're towards the city center, you have to maybe look at a map and figure out exactly which streets those boundaries are on. But generally speaking, everything east of the river and south of Kellogg. And by the way, I actually have the smallest district out of the 5.
Okay.
There's about 220 square miles, but we have, of course, with the apportioned population in the 5 districts, we all have about the same population. About 103,000 people in my district, which means I have the highest population density. I have generally smaller houses. Many of those are older homes. I have things like McConnell Air Force Base, Hilltop, Plainview, Oaklawn, Sunview. I have all of the city of Derby and all of Mulvane that's inside Sedgwick County, and of course it goes into southeast Wichita as well, up to Kellogg.
Sure, very good. As you knock on the doors and you talk to individuals, and I know you have your general election candidate, a challenger that's going to be against you as well, Jim Skelton. But as you knock on the doors, what's been the feel of individuals? And we're running a little short on time, but kind of the main focus of what people have been concerned about, what they've liked, what they want you to do. I mean, has there been a call to action?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people don't really know what county commissioners do or what the county government is actually. So I spend a little bit of time trying to educate people on that to get started. He's a fairly well-known individual. He's known for the city council. We do have our differences. He's been more largely supported by the Democrats. I think this race, like most races, hinges on the unaffiliated voters primarily. I think I've got most of the Republican support, and I have most of the support in the city of Derby and Mulvane. The battlefield seems to be the unaffiliated voters in the city of Wichita. Sure. And so that's where I'm spending a lot of my time campaigning right now. And I'm really enjoying getting much support. I go out and every night I go out and talk to people. I walk away very encouraged. I think that people like what I'm talking about, and so it's a very positive experience. And I think I'm saying the things people want to hear. They're excited to find out the good things the county is doing. Sure. And there is a number of policy differences between my opponent and myself, and I like to bring those things up, of course. Very good. Jim Howell, District number 5, Sedgwick County Commission. We appreciate the time, my friend. Thank you very much, Andy. Very much so. We'll be right back on Decision 2018.